Evan was pretty certain of what awaited after death. Nothing. He pictured it as the same state he'd been in before he was born. In his view, life was a short arc from not existing to existing and back to not existing again. Death, for consciousness, meant falling into an eternal nothing where space and time had no meaning. He told himself there was no reason to fear that interpretation. Nothingness was as neutral as it gets. No heaven, no hell. There would be no suffering and no endless time to dread because time itself would be gone in that state. He knew it was useless to let fear steal his life. It offered no philosophical insight, and worrying about it only wasted the time he had to actually live. And yet, despite all that reasoning, the fear clung to him. He thought about death constantly because the animal urge to continue existing ran deeper than his logic, and the state of not existing was fundamentally unknowable. Would he prefer immortality or an afterlife? No, he answered, because even the myth of Sisyphus didn't convince him that eternal repetition would be life-affirming. He admired aspects of Camus and absurdism, yet he couldn't see Sisyphus as happy. If Sisyphus pushed a boulder forever, he argued, the endless repetition would erode his consciousness. Over time, the task would cease to be a meaningful human action and would become part of nature's cycle. The man would lose his sense of self and feel nothing. That, to Evan, made immortality unattractive. Endless existence would likely strip away emotions, consciousness, and the very qualities that make someone human. Even with all that said, the fear persisted. He admitted that a big part of his resistance to non-existence was gratitude for the life he'd enjoyed so far. Raised with privilege and only just starting college, he hadn't yet felt the kinds of suffering that sometimes make people more comfortable with the idea of not existing. When he spoke with his best friend, who had endured more pain, his friend seemed to find more peace in the idea of not existing than Evan could. That contrast deepened Evan's sense that suffering can change one's relationship to death. Gratitude helped him value life, but it also made the prospect of losing it harder to accept. He worried he might never fully come to terms with the dread of dying. As long as his life stayed decent, or better, he suspected he'd have no strong reason to stop fearing death. Worse, the fear was already intruding on enjoyment. Even in moments he loved, he caught himself thinking, this is just a distraction from death, and those thoughts drained the pleasure out of things. He knew these mental loops were unproductive and probably lowering his quality of life, yet he felt trapped by them. So he asked, does any of this make sense? Is his take on Sisyphus valid? And how do other people live with this stubborn fear when reason alone can't dissolve it?